Welcome to the latest edition of Until Saturday. I'm Ari Wasserman, joined by Dave Ubben, as always, on Thursday's Pick Show, and another good buddy of ours, Chris Vanini from The Athletic. How are you doing today, Chris?
Good, man. We haven't seen each other in a few weeks.
I actually had some free time last night, and I was like, I got to call Chris and see if he wants to get dinner. But then it's just like rush hour and everything. I would have just taken too long. So
I'm not going anywhere. My wife's coming back from COVID, so still around.
I had almonds, and there's an almond in my beard. Okay. Dave, how are we doing today? Almond is, I know, a very normal thing to eat. I know you probably have like live snake venom in your cup next to you, but how are we doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm actually not a huge almonds guy. I do have some.
I do like fava beans.
I do have some Buc-ee's candied cashews in my kitchen that I will probably be partaking in after the
candied cashews are good.
Shout out to my guy Bucky the Beaver over here. I don't know where he's at.
What is it about nuts under a lamp that just makes them crush better? Like, I don't know.
Quick, not to go immediately off the rails.
No, we got to go back on the rails here. But
I thought for a while that I liked the nuts warmer, so I put them in the oven at like 175 for like 10 minutes. But I quickly learned that I actually like them cold. We've lost.
For those not watching on YouTube, Ari has left the screen.
You put nuts?
Again, how is this controversial? That's how they serve it at the Buc-ee's.
God, man. Dude, my number one feedback from the producer was get into the show faster, and you come out here telling me you put nuts in your oven. It's a delicacy that you get in public. You don't recreate it at home. You don't put almonds from the freaking chip aisle into the oven. What are you doing?
Cashews.
You're a psycho. You're a psychopath. Nobody does this. Nobody.
I kind of want to try it. I kind of want to try it now, though.
Ari, have you had the
backfire
from Buc-ee's?
Yes, they're incredible.
It didn't backfire. I just figured out that I actually like them room temperature more, so I don't do it anymore. But I did it for a long time.
Thank you for joining the latest edition of Until Saturday's Week 9 Pick Show. We are live on YouTube now. You might have heard us laughing on the show when it goes into the feed on Friday, or if our editor doesn't edit it out. But I've never in my entire life met a human being like this. Be sure to follow the podcast.
Why would you not do this? Why would you not do this?
I think, you know what I think it is? I think that it is you are dead set on recreating delicacies that are usually in public at home. Like, it's like you get the raw meat because you want it to be fresher at home. You like the warm nuts out in public. Oh, you put them in the oven at home. It's like,
yes.
It's like everything you're trying to recreate at home. And it's like, you go to lengths. Like if I put candied almonds into my oven, like the toffee would melt and ruin my pan.
No, you do it at like at 175 degrees. The lowest setting.
I nailed down the temperature there.
Exactly.
Oh my God!
I made a toaster oven.
Yeah, our own almond toaster. There you go. I'll get you a little like mini almond toaster for your house. Be sure to follow the podcast and app where you listen to podcasts, and subscribe to the Until Saturday feed on YouTube. Be sure you join us live every Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Thursday is the Pick Show, Saturday is the live reaction show, and Sunday is Sunday Sound Off, where you can leave your voicemails and we play them on the show if you'd like to do that. The phone number is 316-462-9852. Again, that is 316-462-9852. Power Hour will also be streaming live this week for the college football playoff rankings reveal on Tuesday evening. It begins next week. Can you believe we're already at that point in the season? The podcast will also publish Tuesday nights once those rankings are revealed. Obviously, I'm going to try to foist my way onto that show, Chris, if you'll let me, because you two don't care about the sanctity of the rankings reveal, because you want everybody in, and I'm the only one.
We're going to have to talk about the teams. We're going to have to, and not the format. We're not.
It bothers me that like we're the last year of the show, and like I love it, and I'm like obsessed with like the debate, and like you guys don't care, and like you get to do it, but we're going to talk about it because I'm going to miss the rankings reveal. That's going to be the thing I miss the most.
It'll still be there, Ari.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not going to like miss debating whether or not like the 19th best team can get their way in. sign up for the Until Saturday newsletter, where you'll get your daily fill of college football news right into your inbox. The links and everything that we've described can be found in both shows' descriptions. If you are signed up for the podcast, but you want to watch us on YouTube, you can find it there. If you're watching us on YouTube and want to listen to the podcast in your car, you can find it there. Please rate, review, thumbs up, share, comment, participate. Anything that you can do to help the show's growth is greatly appreciated. This is the weekly pick show. We're going to get into lines. All the lines that we will present to you are brought to you by BetMGM. But first, there are two major news stories that are out there right now that we want to cover a little bit first. Why don't we start with Michigan State to give people a breather from the Michigan stuff that's been going on for the past 2 weeks or week. And we have the perfect expert here to talk about it. Chris, what's the latest with Michigan State, and what can you offer our audience that has nothing to do with perfect temperatures for almond roasting?
Yeah, this Mel Tucker Michigan State stuff is not going to go away for quite a bit. It came out Wednesday that the investigation, the hearing officer found that he violated the sexual harassment policy, that the preponderance of evidence more likely supported Brenda Tracy's claims than Mel Tucker's claims. He apparently failed to provide documents or witnesses that supported his side, while Brenda Tracy did. MSU has not released the report yet. USA Today got it from Brenda Tracy's lawyer, but they won't release it anymore because Mel Tucker has 10 days to appeal, and he released a statement on Thursday that he will appeal and possibly sue the university. So this fight is going to continue over Mel Tucker and the policy, and MSU trying to fire him for cause so they don't owe him tens of millions of dollars. So that's still floating around in the background among many other things going on at Michigan State.
Yeah, it will obviously be kept abreast by you as we continue to move forward with all of that. It's kind of a sticky situation. I think it is kind of interesting that it is happening right now during a time in which people are less concerned about it than they would have been had Michigan stuff not been happening. Obviously, the discussion of sexual assault and things of that nature are far more serious than recording sideline signs. But, as it pertains to the competitive equity of the sport and cheating and all those things, that is a big interest thing, especially from a team that's competing for a national championship. The Washington Post released a pretty damning story on Wednesday evening outlining more things that Michigan has been accused of or proven of doing. I think we are at the point now where we are past whether or not they have broken the rules of how they attained these signs. And now we're getting to the point of how elaborate was the scheme, how impactful was the information that they got, and how much could they have used that information during the course of the past few seasons in order to help win football games that they might have not otherwise won. Dave, what was your big main takeaway from Wednesday evening? I know you're at Dollywood eating pig's feet or whatever the hell you were doing out there, and you might have missed it when it came out, but what do you think of that?
I mean, I think it's just more incremental. I think that the information in that report makes it hard to believe that there weren't a good chunk of people in the program that knew where this was coming from. I know we can debate the merits of how much it matters, who knew and who knew when and for how long and all of that stuff. They clearly did break the rules. But I think we're still sort of peeling the onion of who knew what and how, not to make light of the situation, but like how deep the rabbit hole does go here in terms of the scope within the staff, all of those things. So I have a lot of questions as well of how they got access to Michigan's computers and who was funding this outside law firm. And there's a lot of questions here that were posed by that story, but ultimately you're getting to the middle of this story, closer to it at least, and it doesn't look great for Michigan.
Yeah, so I posted a tweet on Wednesday evening after the Washington Post story came out that I thought was rather obvious. But I do think that there is an interesting dichotomy on at least Michigan Twitter. If you have a yellow M on your Twitter feed or in your bio, you are processing this information much differently than the rest of the country. And I think that it's interesting kind of look into how fandom kind of impacts your ability to look straight into a situation and kind of come away with the same takeaway as everybody else. But also too, when you watch people try to defend their program, it is very interesting to see like what kind of defenses they can come up with, and sometimes even makes you think a little bit more about your stance if you are, on the other side of it. But here's the tweet that I posted, Chris, and I want to know what your takeaway was. It had 500,000 views, and you were like laughing before the show about it, and I didn't really quite understand why, so I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So let me just paraphrase or read this quickly. The notion that everything hinges on whether Jim Harbaugh knew about this sign stealing scheme is interesting to me. 1, how could he not know? 2, even if he somehow didn't, wouldn't he, as the coach, feel he has the best info in the history of football sign stealing and ask where it came from? If my wife came home with a duffel bag filled with $100,000, I'd ask where it came from. If I came home with $100,000, she'd probably ask me where it came from me. I'm not married to Karen Hill here, okay?
She would just say congrats to the Jets, sorry.
Yeah, and she would be like, hey, did Liberty cover on Tuesday? No, I wish it was that. My goal in life is to bet that much. I haven't gotten there yet. 3, is being the leader of the program and not knowing about a cheating ring worse than being involved from the beginning? 4, Connor Stallions has been around this program for years. This isn't a 2-month thing. It isn't a 6-week thing. How could the CEO of the program employ someone engaged in this behavior for years and not know, particularly when that human being is standing on the sideline with enough paper to reopen a Kinko's and feeding calls or at least information into the coordinator's ears? Lastly, what do Michigan supporters even hope for right now? Because I don't think Jim Harbaugh didn't know is the get out of jail free card that everybody thinks it is. Chris, reaction? Is it? I think it's obvious, but what is your reaction to this?
So the Washington Post story was the first thing out of all of this to indicate there is a decent chance of widespread knowledge or knowledge that it goes beyond Stallions. For this information to come from supposedly a computer drive or computer drives that were accessible by Michigan coaches makes you wonder, did they come across it? Did they see it? Did everybody know it was in there? The other part of this, which we'll have to talk about at some point, is that it was a law firm, apparently an investigative firm, that put forward this information to the NCAA, said, hey, we've got all this stuff. That means likely somebody had access to this and this firm got it. I don't think they illegally hacked into it. So I don't know if there's a mole or a whistleblower or something. That means somebody knew about this. And instead of just going to the NCAA and say, hey, Michigan's cheating, they got all the information and proof that they could before they did. And so that's that makes you think this could go faster than normal because they apparently have a lot of information. If the Washington Post,
because it cuts the length of the investigation time down. If you have accumulated the information before you have the crime, then what are we doing here? Now, I think that the most interesting dynamic to this whole thing, Dave, is, and the number one question that we have been getting, if you're on a radio show or you hear it on Twitter or whatever, is how do you think that this is going to end? Like, what is going to happen to Jim Harbaugh and all of those questions? But the thing that is interesting about that is there are interesting questions that need to be answered before you could even come close to answering that. Like, what did Jim Harbaugh know? What was the extent of his involvement in this? How much information were they using in their game plans? If he knew, did he continue to sign off on the use of it? All these things that come into play in terms of like how Michigan was involved in this, and the leadership, the people who are making the real money on the sidelines, how do they employ it? I don't know how you can completely, like, everyone's like, Michigan's cooked. It's like, okay, if you think that, that's fine. But don't you kind of have to get coaches and the head coach on the hook a little bit more? And maybe that's what these hard drives are going to show. But we don't have the answers to those big questions, which was, did like Jim Harbaugh sign off on a cheating ring? Like, that to me is one last thing too, Dave, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
The difference that I want to make a distinction to is like the difference between sign stealing and competitive advantage and cheating. Because those words are being used interchangeably, and I don't think they're the same thing.
They're not.
Competitive advantage,
and it's not even blurred.
Are they cheating?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. Now, this is complicated because I think we ask, what's going to happen. I think that's a two-pronged question, because it's what's going to happen to Jim Harbaugh and what's going to happen to Michigan.
Right.
With Jim Harbaugh, there was already a lot of smoke. They're like, this could be his last year. He might be able to, he might be on his way to the NFL. There was already another NCAA situation about him getting not a cheeseburger. I guess it might have been a chicken sandwich with a recruit during COVID, during the recruiting shutdown.
That place is really good food, by the way. We went there during the
Nice.
official visit tour, and
so like that already, like that, they had the self-imposed thing, but that's still ongoing. So like there's been a lot of smoke around that. So if you want to believe that Jim Harbaugh's headed to the NFL for the season, I think that that's a very reasonable assumption to get to, especially if they win a national title this year. That's what happens in Michigan. It's incredibly complicated. There's no specific punishment for this. And in the rule book, this is not a rule that has a lot of precedent. So when you talk about NCAA punishments, I think they're going to go to their usual strategy of going in the dark room, putting the blindfold on, and throwing the dart at the wall, and we'll see which punishment they land on for how bad this is. Now, when you have academic issues or when you have payment to athletes in the old days, they had precedents there. This one doesn't really have that, but then you have everyone in your conference that's furious about this, that's going to be beating down the NCAA's door if they get away with a wrist slap here. It's really unpredictable in terms of how the NCAA will handle this.
The thing I think about the most similar to a championship team during the season is Cam Newton in 2010. When there was the reports, hey, his dad was shopping him around to different schools. Remember, he was deemed ineligible right before the SEC championship game. And then the NCAA came back and they said, actually, no, he is eligible. He plays, they win the title. And eventually Auburn was cleared of all of that. That said, hey, his dad was doing this, but Cam didn't know. Auburn didn't know. If you believe that, okay. But that's what that is. And I know, going back to the investigative firm real quick, I know people are wondering, hey, who paid for this? Who had this done? That's the big question. Not really. I mean, it's juicy, but clearly Michigan was doing this. And
it's
so that
interesting. It doesn't affect the punishment.
Yeah.
Well, who was funding the $15,000 is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Within Michigan.
Which, by the way, I think is pretty, I don't know, if he just has friends in all these cities, but if you are traveling to all these games, buying tickets, and your budget for all of this is $15,000. He's a savvy shopper. I was going to say, it's not that much money. Yeah.
Also, supposedly this evidence included photos of the people doing this, which are believed to be Michigan interns acting as scouts. That is, again, more potential proof that this was involved more than just counter stallion. So again, every day new information comes out.
Before we get to the picks, one last question I'm going to let both of you answer. Is there any scenario in your minds where this year's Michigan team is impacted by this in any way?
Well, I mean, I wrote a story this week about the impact of illegally sign stealing, going above and beyond, and maybe getting more information than you might have off the All-22. Coaches seem to believe that it's a big impact. If Michigan turns into a pumpkin in the back half of this season, there'll be a lot of pontificating on what that means. You don't have your, is it like the great American piece of cinema like Mike, where you don't have your magic shoes anymore or whatever? I don't think that's going to happen. But if it does, there's the question of, is this a distraction? Did you lose the team? All this stuff. Michigan over these next 6 games is going to be really, really fascinating.
It would be interesting too. If they just beat the crap out of Ohio State again after all of this, then it just how big of a deal was it? I think that they're playing for something bigger now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was in East Lansing for that 49-0 beatdown when we watched. There was nobody by defense coordinator Jesse Minter calling in the plays. Michigan State brought its quarterback to the sideline to get the play and go back out for the first half. Didn't matter. So I could very well see a situation where Michigan rolls through the rest of the season, and the thought is, hey, the sign stealing didn't really matter. Look how good they are. But they're on a bye this week. They play Penn State November 11th. The question is, does the Big Ten do anything? Tony Petitti's only been on the job for a couple of months now, and he's clearly getting pressured by other schools in the Big Ten to do something about this. And, Kevin Warren was defined by how he handled COVID shortly into his tenure. Now this is going to be on Tony Petitti's lap. Do they not do anything to Michigan? They go win a championship, and then we find out Jim Harbaugh knew, or do you do like, I know our colleague Stuart Mandel keeps thinking Michigan could or should be banned from the Big Ten championship game. I don't think they're going to do that unless something comes out before then that we knew. But even still,
I think the only way you can do that is if you definitively prove that they are cheating.
Well,
or prove that they have cheated.
The NCAA is trying not to penalize current teams for this stuff. We just saw it with Tennessee. They didn't get a bowl ban, for their whole thing because they fired everybody and got a big fine and all that stuff. They're trying not to take postseason opportunities away from kids. The kids theoretically weren't doing the sign stealing. So do you make coaching changes during the season? I don't know. It depends what else we find out. But until we find out some smoking gun, I don't think the Big Ten's going to penalize them in the season.
Okay, so I think we went about 10 minutes on that. I think we were instructed to go 5. We did the best that we could. I think that it's going to be a discussion that we continue to have. Yeah. I will say that I wish that Michigan was on our pick show this week because that would have been a spectacle to watch if they were playing this week. But unfortunately, they're not. A reminder, all the lines are presented by BetMGM. We are going to go through some games now. We are going to have some fun. And before we start, I just want to do a quick shout out to The Athletic. I want you guys to go read stories. Max Olson, our wonderful colleague, had an incredible story talking to an actual sign stealer who gave tips. It was the 10 commandments almost, or 10 things to learn about actual sign stealing and how it's impacting the sport. And then, of course, Dave talked to some Power 5 coaches anonymously to hear their thoughts on what was going on and how much they impact games. And both I thought were very revealing and important stories to read. If you are interested in what's going on there, if you're not, sign up for The Athletic already. I don't know what you're doing. Please do that. But also subscribe and comment and all the good things for the podcast. Okay.
And shout out to the Michigan fans who were arguing that it was just Ryan Day 4 times in our story.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's go. We can't go down that road. 10 picks. I don't know if we'll get to 10. Maybe we'll do a speed round.
Yeah.
However you want to do it. Let's start with what I think is the most interesting game of the week. Oregon on the road at Utah. Both teams are 6-1 and 3-1 in Pac-12 play. Oregon is laying 6.5, and instrumental, important game in the Pac-12 race. And we said before the year, Dave, from lessons that we were supposed to learn.
I'm doing it. I don't think that
I don't think that I learned them.
Nope.
Never count out Utah. Like, are they going to just mess around and win the Pac-12 with all the Washington hype and all this? Like, it could happen again.
I don't think Utah's very good. And I looked up and they're 6-1 and they're ranked in the top 15. And I'm like, I believed in Utah last year. I thought they were going to go to the playoff last year. And then Florida sort of undercut them there. But they're so beat up. I don't think I even realized that no Brant Keithy for the whole season was a possibility, back in September. I knew with Cam Rising, like it sounded like there was a setback. The vibes coming out of camp were not good there, but we weren't really sure. But I didn't realize that Brant Keithy on the board as well. But they're so beat up, and I think Utah is a little overvalued here because they bullied a USC team that, look, I'm not going to say they're soft, but if somebody told me they were soft and was going off about how USC
why won't you say they're soft?
Yeah, I was going to say, you're just saying they're soft.
I'm just saying, I'm not going to argue if people want to say that, but I think
why. So I want you to say it. It's a fact. I feel like
I don't know that it's fully a fact. I think their secondary is very lost. I think their front seven is not terrible, and I think their offensive line has troubles pass blocking.
When does it stop being a coincidence?
All right. I just said I'm not going to argue if you think they're soft, but I think Oregon's really tough on both lines. They're explosive offensively. They average more more yards per play than USC. I think people don't quite realize that somehow. More plays, longer than 30 yards. But they can go toe-to-toe with Utah up front, which is where obviously USC could not. And even in Rice Eccles, I'm a believer in Oregon. I just think Oregon's really good. I still think Oregon's a playoff team. So give me the Ducks and give me I'll lay the points. I think they win this big. And Utah just keeps figuring out ways. But I think Oregon and Washington are just too good. Too good for this.
Want for this podcast feed for people to let it fly the way I do. I know.
But I don't fully think they're soft.
I'm with you.
I don't.
If you think something, say it. It's a podcast. We're having a good time.
Doesn't necessarily mean soft physically, just means soft as a concept. To not bring your players to the post-game press conference after losing to Utah, that's soft. It permeates everything
ever to
that
win
they
a game.
do.
Yeah, that part is soft. But I don't watch USC and just watch them get pushed around all the time. I think that's.
I think the definition of soft is when your defense comes out onto the field with a minute left in the game after having a miraculous comeback and knowing they're going to lose.
Yeah.
I don't think it's always a physicality thing. Chris, what were you going to say?
As for this game, like, Ubben, you don't think Utah's good, but defensively, they are very, very good. We can say, hey, quarterback has been an issue, moving the ball sometimes has been an issue, but at least half of this team is very, very good. And the other part of this game to me is that it's on the road, it's at Utah. It's a very, very difficult place to play. And I don't think this is going to necessarily be a high-scoring game. I'm taking Utah to cover, Oregon to win, just because I think the home field for Utah is a factor. And the thing with Utah, like, they get better as the season goes along every year. And now you're not going to have Cam Rising, you're not going to have Brandon Keithy, all these injuries that they've had. But everything else about Utah is getting better as the season goes on, and that happens every single season with this team. For them to be 6-1 through all of that, through USC and Florida and all these other games that they've played, I would be very scared of how the rest of the Pac-12 right now.
I'm not going to say that you're wrong about the defense being quote unquote good, but if you look at the offenses that they've played, Florida does not really impress a lot of people. Baylor is a disaster. Weber State, whatever. UCLA, not a good offense. Oregon State, probably the best offensive line that they've played. They lost that game 21-7. Cal.
I am laughing because I wish I could record this video of you talking right now and show it to you in September.
That's fair.
This is literally the point.
I know it is. I warned you before. I said I'm about to do it again. But USC has good skill position players, but their offensive line, we've been on this since week 0. The offensive line at USC is not good, and that I think is a low key reason why this team is not very good.
So you're laying 6.5.
Yeah.
We're disrespecting Utah by spending most of this pick talking about USC. You guys realize that, right?
Yeah.
You're doing it again.
But are you picking Utah?
Okay. Listen, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm sorry.
Chris, you're on Utah?
I'm on Utah to cover. Utah to cover. Oregon straight up.
I like Oregon minus 6.5 if I can get it under a touchdown. I don't like it if I've seen spreads up to 7 and 7.5. Yeah. If you get 2 scores, I think that's kind of where I like that critical number at 7. If I can get under it, I think Oregon can win this game by 7. But also, too, like Utah has proven time and time again, that's just a really, really hard place to play a road game.
I already have my apology drafted for the Saturday night.
But it's also not a night game. So you could write that should probably be the Monday column this week, if we're being honest. Like if Utah ends up winning this game, you should just write an apology letter to Utah.
That's true.
Fans.
Yes. Utah, despite all of the reasons to not believe in you.
It's wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the entire world.
It wouldn't. If
they won the Pac-12 this year. Like
if they got all the way to there.
I mean,
I don't know. Maybe.
If you had told me before the season Cam Rising and Brandon Keithy are not playing and Utah all season and Utah wins the Pac-12, I would have been stunned.
And are we really going to get through this pick without talking about the DB that now is playing running back and had 400 yards?
Sione baby.
Vaki had 400 yards of total offense in the last 2 games. I want to say it
was John Canzano who said, "What were the Vegas odds on Travis Hunter not being the most impactful two-way player? In the Pac-12 this year, those are pretty good. You should have got on those.
I invested in some Travis Hunter sports cards, by the way, just as with his signature on them, and I think I have them back here in this box. I'm just going to hold on to those for a few years.
Did you see him and Shador getting a shout out from LeBron after the game the other night?
They were at the game.
They're really in another area of
which was interesting during a game week to be at an NBA game and doing TNT. Was it they were doing sideline something?
It's at night. It's fine. It's whatever.
Game 2, guys. Oklahoma 7-0, 4-0 in Big 12 play, laying 10 points on the road at Kansas, which is 5-2, 2-2, and it's a big noon game. I don't know if it's on Fox, big noon. Jason Bean will start at quarterback for Kansas. I initially had this as my upset alert of the week game because I thought there was a chance that Jalen Daniels will be playing. He will not be, it looks like. But is this a tricky spot for Oklahoma, Chris? What do you think?
I don't think so because they come off the escape of UCF last week, coming off the bye after Texas. So I think they had their scare. I think they will be back on track. I think they will be more focused. But Oklahoma, it's a program that I've seen them play twice. I saw them play SMU and look pretty bad. I saw them play Texas and look great. So it's all about the mentality with this team. They can't just roll in and beat you by a million points or whatever. This game last year, remember Kansas was ranked. I think it might have been the college game day game last year when it went to Kansas, and Oklahoma went in and scored 52 points, beat them by 10. I think Oklahoma's focused again. I think Kansas without Jalen Daniels has been up and down. And when they get in these big games, they get destroyed on the lines. It happened against Texas earlier this year. I think it happens again with Oklahoma, taking Oklahoma with the points.
Yeah, Kansas, I've talked to people there this year. They're hoping Jalen Daniels can get back, but it's a very weird situation with him. Obviously, it doesn't sound like it's going to be this week. That's a problem. Oklahoma's a pretty balanced team, and I think they're also undervalued on this line coming off of UCF. I think the defense actually carries the day in this one, and the offense is good enough to cover.
I'm with you. I like Oklahoma. I'd lay the 10 here. I would certainly take the 10 if Daniels were playing. I don't think that would be the spread.
Yeah. I don't think so either, but he isn't.
Oklahoma is this year, though. I think it's fascinating. Are we at the point where the Sooners are a legitimate national championship contender, or are they just a fun bounce back story still?
I think they're a CFP contender. They're going to be favored in every game they play the rest of the year, depending on. We'll see about Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote this week in the undefeated. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think they're a national championship contender yet. I mean, if they're on their best, sure. I mean, we saw them compete in the trenches against Texas. What they did against Texas was not anything we'd seen all year. So we know the potential is there, but week in and week out, I think they struggle to run the ball otherwise in key moments and kind of iffy on the lines.
Yeah, I think it'd be crazy if this was the Oklahoma team that finally won a game in the playoff, right? Yeah. They're good, and I think you have to take them seriously, and they're definitely, obviously, they're sitting there undefeated. They're a threat to make the playoff. They're probably a Texas win away from doing that. But it's hard for me to see them getting a matchup in round one and being like, oh, I like the Sooners here for sure.
Look what you've done to our podcast. Read it out loud, Dave.
It says the duck bacon is a bit expensive, gamey, but worth the try.
Thanks, bud. Thanks for doing
yes, on the turkey pastrami.
Last year we were debating on what the best free bread was at restaurants, and now we're talking about duck bacon. I don't even know what that is.
Texas Roadhouse easily, but
what is duck bacon?
It's just bacon. I mean, it's just like duck.
What do you mean?
Breast.
It's just bacon?
No, it's duck breast that's sliced. So you know how how duck breasts have the fat cap. Well, it's on the top of you just slice it. It looks like
Catherine B's in here yelling at me to try new things. I've never even seen this.
Hey,
it's not
even a thing that I've been oh, I'm going to pass on that. It's like
Oven. What were you saying about Texas Roadhouse?
It's the best free bread.
Okay. Because one just opened down the road from here. It's about.
Oh, you should go check it out.
It's the best. It's the best steak chain by far.
I think that the notion of going to pay $18 or $30 for a chain steak is just weird. But those are the Outback and stuff are the perfect places if you just want to go smash food. If you want French onion soup and French fries and chicken fingers and appetizers and all the things that probably aren't very good for you. Scott Aldridge just said Central Market 75 in Mockingbird. I live less than a mile from a Central Market in Midway Hollow. I've never maybe I'll go try it. I don't know. Ari, what would be your last supper? Domino's cheesy bread. No, I'm kidding. All right, let's get to the next game. I'm going to this game.
Yes.
And it'll be a game that's not at midnight, so it'll be nice to actually be able to write a story and get back to the hotel and do a podcast. But number 1 Georgia 7-0 playing in the largest outdoor cocktail party in the world or whatever.
World's largest outdoor cocktail party.
I messed up before I got there, and then at the end I messed up. Versus Florida 5-2. Florida has shown some life that we didn't know existed in their hearts. This is a very interesting game. We're sending 4 writers to it, so I don't know if it's that interesting, but we're going to
going.
I'm going. Manny Navarro's going, so we're going to be on the Florida side, and Schultz is going, national columnist, and Beth Emerson, our beat writer. But
in some ways, that's circumstantial.
Yeah. I would reroute and go to Utah, Oregon, I think, if they needed that. But this will be fun. I'm excited. I have some. It's like, who doesn't like going to Florida? And,
we don't need to get on a Jacksonville tangent
Yeah.
again, all right? But
I visited Florida this fall camp and went through Jacksonville. That drive from Jacksonville to Gainesville is surprisingly daunting.
it is.
It's a lot of back roads, yeah. But you're not going to have to do that. You're going straight to Jacksonville. So.
I like back roads, and I like driving in areas of the country that I've never driven. So, but here's the thing, guys. We are in a position, and I said this, Chris, to Dave on the show last week, where we had to fill out our middle of the year playoff picks last week. And I thought that was very, very, very challenging because no matter who you pick, you're leaving 3 or 4 teams that are overly qualified.
Mhm.
Like I found myself not including Florida State, and that felt disgusting to me. But as we do this, are we tricking ourselves into thinking there's parity in the sport this year? Or is Georgia just going to start mowing people down like Georgia has tended to do the last few years, starting this weekend with Florida, and just beat the crap out of everybody in the playoff and win their 3rd straight national championship? Or do we actually have parity? I don't know if we could trust Florida completely to give us the answer to that question this weekend, but does Florida have any fight in it enough to make this an interesting neutral site rivalry game that kind of has some intrigue in the 3rd quarter?
So when I visited Billy Napier in the fall, he felt very good about what they could do in the trenches. He they got some young defensive backs and receivers, got to grow, get through some growing pains, but he thought they'd be good on the line. And the Kentucky game happens, and they just get completely destroyed by Ray Davis. And so that is my concern coming into this game. Graham Mertz has actually been solid, believe it or not, Albin, who's not exactly a big Graham Mertz fan, but he's got 12 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. One of those was the first game of the year. He throws for 423 yards last week, a career high. But they also needed like a kind of crazy comeback to beat South Carolina, So like there are parts about this Florida team to like. I just don't think top to bottom Florida is going to be able to keep up. This game was a blowout from almost the beginning last year, and Florida's better. They are improved. Georgia's taken a step back, but
the combination of Florida playing the best game it possibly could play, and Brock Bowers not being played, and maybe there being some warts underneath the hood that Georgia has that we're not certain of. Like, could the perfect storm of this game be like what if we get like Tennessee, Florida? Like, what if we get that game?
If that happens, then Florida can win this game. If Florida plays at its best and Georgia doesn't play well, Florida can. I just. Every Georgia game the rest of the season, I think, just comes down to Georgia. If you get focused, sharp Georgia, shut it down. The Georgia team that showed up in that Kentucky game, nobody can beat that team. Yep. Nobody can beat that team. That's the one time we've seen that team, literally all season. So I don't think this Georgia team has the same upside as previous years, but they're still a really good team, and they still have as much talent as anybody. I know Alabama rates higher on the talent composite, but Georgia, I think, is more experienced and is a more talented team. And I think people underrate the fact that, they did steal 2 SEC teams' top receivers. And those guys have not been very productive. I've been talking to coaches all season. I've been kind of surprised by that. We thought they were going to be really big-time guys and haven't been. That's been surprising. But now the opportunity's there. And losing Bowers is big, but I think it comes down to who is Georgia. And I think you get focused Georgia this week. I think the combination of no Bowers, you do have a rivalry game that Georgia cares about. I think you get focused Georgia, and I'm gonna take Georgia and lay the points here.
I'm going to the game, so I kind of hope it's not 39-0 at halftime.
For your sake, I do too. All right.
But I also have my column written in my head either way. So me and Manny are going to fight to the death. Like, I already know what it is. Either way, like, I think even if they play a close game, it's the same column. It's just a tenor different. But I think we're going to find. I'll just tell you the angle of the story, and then we'll see what. But we're going to find out. Like, I think that Billy Napier, without question, I think deserves to stick around. Like, he bought himself some time because he has shown a fight in his program that we didn't know existed before the year. Mm-hmm. Dave and I, at the beginning of the year, I think it was after the Utah game, just said, "Holy crap, this is going to be an ugly year." And they're sitting here at 5-2, and kind of like a crazy upset away from like controlling their
Yeah.
destiny in their division. And when you're on the edge of November and that's the case, you deserve, especially with the players he has coming in, like that is more than enough. To me, the question is, how many years should it actually take for a team in the SEC or a place that's won national championship in our recent memory to build a team that you can feel the competitive reminder of how far the gap is between even a great program or a traditionally great program like Florida and what actually is elite at places like Alabama and Georgia. And like, we're going to find out how much progress I think Billy Napier has made in his, short time at Florida in that regard, especially considering the fact that we don't view this Georgia team as the Death Star Georgia that they were the last 2 years, especially without their best player. So I unfortunately like Georgia minus 14.5 because, every single time I go to the game, I just kind of feel like it ends up going exactly how I thought it was going to go. I'd love to have like a weird result that we could I always my dream was always were you at that game where that thing happened that no one saw coming? Like, it never works out that way for me. I think Georgia's probably just going to be winning 24-3 at halftime, but that's the side I like, but I hope Florida shows some fight.
I mean, some of the recent games you've gone to, Ari, the national champion, or you weren't there, you left before, but the national championship game went the way you expected. In Texas, Alabama, I think went the way you seemed to expect.
It did,
so,
yes.
Yeah.
I will say that the national championship game last year went more the way I expected than any other game I've ever talked about on this show.
So you actually picked Florida in our picks that went up today. I
just
Florida.
Do that hastily sometimes because I don't want to be late. It's hard.
Well, you're beating me, so I feel great about it. I picked Georgia.
I don't play any of those games in real life, by the way.
I know. That's why I feel bad. But Bill Connolly's SP Plus had this at 14.7. So the line I could see really that going either way. But I'm with Ubben. I think we get focused Georgia this week, and Florida is improved. But I think focused Georgia
isn't good enough to just blow out Florida. Can we consider that?
Yes,
I think it is.
Well, what if they're not?
I think it is.
Yeah, okay. I'm not saying that they're not. I'm
Kentucky's
just saying.
Good.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Next game. Jeez. Relax, guys. I'm talking about Gatorade.
I'm not going to let somebody disrespect Kentucky on this podcast, Ari.
I didn't. I was trying to see whether or not there was some vulnerability. If you think Georgia is that Georgia, then I don't think we're going to get the super Cinderella ending that everybody's hoping for this year. I think we're just going to get more of the same of last year, just extended to more teams.
Ari, you would jump off a cliff if Air Force won a national title this year.
I would jump off a cliff if they.
You're so focused on the postseason when we care about the regular season of college football. That's the thing that matters to us.
That the regular season of college football is a metric to determine the postseason.
You think it's a great.
You think it's a fun you think it's field day in kindergarten. That's what you think it is.
When you go to Georgia, Florida, and you see the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, you're gonna realize how special that is, no matter the circumstances around these teams. Just like Texas, Oklahoma last year. I hope you appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm going to Georgia, Mizzou next week, by the way. Georgia's got a nice little back-to-back here. So.
I don't know who has a bigger travel budget, you or Stallions, but we're gonna figure that out because this guy's got more Marriott points than the freaking Prince of Europe. I don't know what that means. Okay, Ohio State 7-0, 4-0 in the Big Ten, laying 14.5 on the road at Wisconsin, 5-2, 3-1. 7:30 p.m. Eastern time kick. This was Chris's trap game, not to blow the superlatives. I don't know how to say that word. Superlatives at the end of the show. Chris, why was this your trap of the week?
Because Ohio State's coming off a big win and they're going on the road to a difficult place to play. Honestly, I think Wisconsin, which I think is kind of in control of its destiny for the Big Ten West at this point because of what happened to Iowa. I actually think they've been one of the more disappointing teams of this season. I thought Luke Fickell coming in, the offensive changes, that they would just get that thing rolling right off the bat. And it hasn't. They needed a last-second touchdown to beat Illinois. Rutgers game was, they lost to Iowa at home. Wisconsin's actually been disappointing. But I think for a game like this, they get up. I think we get a sleepy Ohio State, which we've seen most of this year. I'm going to count the number of grab-ass tweets we get from Ari on Saturday. I think Wisconsin can cover that 14.5.
And we'll probably be live after this game, right, Dave? So what do you?
Yeah, definitely.
What is your thought process on Ohio State, Wisconsin? Are you sold on Ohio State now?
Are we sure Wisconsin can score double digits in this game? Like, to me, if you're going to play this game, the under is the play. I think Wisconsin probably slows this down a little bit, leans away from the dairy raid. I mean, no Tanner Mordecai is a big deal, and they looked ugly last week. Needed some absolute heroics to get out of losing to Illinois. So, I don't want to be too reactionary. That's how,
reactionary gets you buried real quick in the sport.
Yes,
yeah,
it really does. But I'm not sure Wisconsin can score in this game. So I'm going to tentatively go Ohio State and lay the points here.
The number is very low for the over-under. 43.5 for an Ohio State game is pretty low. It's weird to think that like this Ohio State team is winning games or will continue to win games because they've got a great defense. It's like you have to like rewire your brain to be like, oh, Ohio State's going to actually stop people from scoring in like a very impressive way this year. And even if Kyle McCord isn't Joe Montana, Ohio State can win games like they did last week, 20-12. It
just feels like a 30-6 situation.
I mean, what did you mean tentatively pick? You can't change it here. We're not doing another one of these before the game.
But I'm saying I don't feel good about that number. I'm not that confident, but I feel good about the under here.
You want to buy the hook and make it 14?
That doesn't matter that much to me. I don't think.
Oh yeah, two scores and three scores, no difference.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying I think the issue is that you will probably know in the first 16 minutes of this game how it's going to go.
I think it's like 20-6. I think we get like a 20-6 game.
Mm-hmm.
God, I think we win 20-6.
Also, there's no shame in losing to Iowa.
Yes, there is.
You know why I was so angry in my Iowa column this week?
You got people upset.
Please tell us.
Went too far.
It was just you. You did it to me. Your column from the week before lit that fire under me. We're podcast co-hosts, and you're writing like.
I'm realizing this actually, Ari. I am realizing this. I think, not to set you up further, Ari, you love the regular season because of what it means for the postseason. And Chris and I just love the regular season on its merits. I love all of these games, and I care somewhat what it means for the playoff, but not really. Like, the playoff is the playoff, but I love a lot of these for just their existence. And I think
do you think that it makes you, Chris, like you're a more pure college football fan than me because you just love the pageantry more?
Not at all.
Is that what you're trying to say?
We're different. I think it's why I enjoy this podcast, because I love and respect you, Ari, but we're very different people. And
but I don't understand how you I guess I'm kind of guilty of like playing along with it, even back to last year with Andy. But it's like, how could you possibly be rooting for this team to like succeed when the thing that they're doing is I don't know. It's not funny.
I disagreed. By the way, I disagreed with Ubben's column in the sense that if they made the Big Ten championship game, I
want to throw them out of a moving automobile.
They have no shot of winning that game.
Said it took, I believe the example I used was Haley's Comet coming 40 years early.
Or maybe Michigan's sign stealing getting broken up before the game.
Yeah, maybe. So it's not like I'm saying it was possible, but I'm just saying my approach to college football in many ways is a lot of times if I have a rooting interest, it's for the funniest outcome possible.
Yeah.
And Iowa making the playoff when everyone won't shut up.
But I think that what they're actually doing is super serious, though.
I agree
with
what
they're doing to the program, like what's happening with the father-son relationship, like that's not funny to me. So like that is, I think, kind of why
not funny.
Yeah.
But them making the playoff while everyone talks about how much they suck, including their own fans, that is funny, Ari.
Yeah.
That's about as funny as it gets.
Yeah. Catherine and I are on the same team here. You're gonna make me write it again. Like if anybody that's an Iowa fan got mad at me for being too harsh, I didn't really get a lot of hate, actually, to be honest.
I agreed with your column, Ari. I thought it was a good column.
I did too.
Yeah.
I just do think it's funny because I don't have a personal investment in it. So
The Athletic thought it was too, or my editor thought it was too mean, and then they changed the headline after it ran to include the word nepotism, and then they put it on the front page of the sports section of the New York Times. So there was no hiding from what I thought, and. You know what?
It is nepotism. I don't know how you can say, like, he's
you
clearly
said what you said. You said what most Iowa fans say.
I know they're with me though. Usually as a reporter, if you say what fans are saying, they don't like that. They want to say it.
Exactly.
They want to say it on the message board. But they're at the point now where they want it to be said for everyone to see because they can't take it anymore. And Dave is like, "Oh, it'd be funny if they made the playoff this year." And it's like, I mean, I guess if they made the playoff, but they weren't going to make the playoff. What they were going to do is make the Big Ten championship game, get their asses kicked, and then still reinforce. That's not funny either. Like they're just going to play Michigan or Ohio State. But if they did
find a way to win, Ari, it would be very funny.
They wouldn't.
Literally
they wouldn't.
Can't,
TCU
which makes it irrelevant. Okay. All right, guys, this is another interesting game. Chris and I, who knows, like in a few weeks, we might cover a game together or one of us might cover it when Texas comes up in 2 or 3 weeks to play TCU. But Texas right now, 6-1, 3-1, laying 17.5 on the road at BYU. Obviously, this is interesting because Quinn Ewers is out and Malik Murphy is going to start, but Sark left the door open for Arch Manning appearance in this game, potentially.
Gotta see.
I am legitimately terrified that we're not going to make it back to Quinn getting back with their record being a 1 loss or a 1 in the loss column still. Like, and I also think it's kind of bullshit. Like if they lose, like without their starting quarterback, like if that makes me wrong, I'm just like,
you covered the 2014 Ohio State team that won a national championship with the 3rd string quarterback. That's the standard.
I know it is. And I actually think Malik Murphy's really good or like has the tools to be. So
let me ask you a question, Ari. How many wins over above 500 teams do you think BYU has?
0.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The answer is 0.
The spread's 3-4, so
I'm not going to use the F word, but
no F words allowed on the show anymore.
You look at their wins, right? And you say, okay, Cincinnati, the best win is future Big 12 champion Texas Tech, who is absolutely sandbagging right now at 3-5, waiting in the wings to make their late season run to Arlington and to get to the playoff. But you just don't see the wins there for them. And I think even without Quinn Ewers, I'm excited to see what Malik Murphy is because I think he's in a really weird spot just in his career. And
on the depth chart,
Yeah, and if you had to tell me if he's starting for a P5 program next year that's not the Longhorns, I would say decent shot. That's the case.
I think I would say that he could have started for one this year.
Well, I'm talking about in reality, though, because like the people
I'm
are
saying
going to
if he would have transferred, it would have been reality.
Oh, it's possible. Yeah,
if I want to see it before this year. Why would he stay this year? Is a question I think I would have.
Well, you never know. I mean, he's getting his opportunity now. I think literally Saturday's game is why you stay here because Arch is still a true freshman and you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, here's the funniest thing because like I'm not so concerned about BYU. I'm worried about Kansas State. Like they might be able to go and play grab ass against BYU, but they play Kansas State. Kansas State plays the right kind of game. That could be the thing that knocks them off. But like, what about this that nobody's considering? What if Malik Murphy comes out and just completely dominates BYU and looks like the big-bodied freak of an athlete that he is with a monster arm and runs people over and then has 2 awesome weeks where he just looks like a stud? Like, is there any scenario whatsoever? And maybe there isn't. Maybe I'm just trying to be a fun podcast host. Is there any scenario whatsoever where Malik Murphy makes people question who the best quarterback on this team is?
Possible. I'm not going to say it's impossible.
You're saying if he does that, because I think he can. I think he can. We don't know if he has a great 2 weeks. I would keep him as a starter if Quinn Ewers is back.
I saw the guy in person at the Elite 11 regional in June, and I covered him at the Elite 11 finals when he was a participant in the camp. And the growth just physically that he has gone under in the 2 years that he's been at Texas or whatever it's been is unbelievable. Like this, we're talking about like a Joe Milton type body here.
Yeah.
And like, if you have an accurate, like everybody's like Arch watch, look at this. Will Chaney here. My guy, Arch watch. Buddy, I'm on Malik watch.
Yeah. Arch's production might make you say, wow, but you're never going to watch him and just be like, oh my gosh. Malik, you will. Like, Malik, you'll be like,
I wish, like, I don't know. I'm very excited to go to the game this weekend, but like, I would love to cover this one. I heard that BYU was just beautiful.
I was going to say, well, okay, we didn't make picks on this, by the way. Are you? I
I'm
assume
laying
you're both
it.
taking
I'm
Texas.
laying it. Yeah.
I'm gonna go Texas. Yeah.
I
I'm gonna go
think
Texas.
I am too. I mean, 2 weeks ago we saw BYU destroyed by TCU. I just can't think about Texas playing at BYU without thinking about that game that got Manny Diaz fired and like completely changed his trajectory for a long
Taysom
time.
Hill's not playing in this game.
I don't see a Taysom Hill in this game. Keaton Slovis's numbers have not been really good this season. He threw for 127 yards against Texas Tech last week. I am taking Texas with the points as well.
All right, this is not a good week for all of us to be very certain on Texas on the road.
They're not losing this one.
Semi-competent team. Probably not, but
No. Yeah. I mean,
I look forward to the argument of whether or not this counts on Saturday night if they do lose.
No, I mean, if they lose to BYU.
Oh, if they lose, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like, I feel like this is a boxing match with you every week of like, is Texas going to do it? And we're getting into the middle late rounds and we are losing steam right now on my side of the thing. And I don't know what needs to happen, but we need an adrenaline shot or some devil's dandruff or something, but we got to get back.
I'm like I was defense, sorry. I just keep on coming at you. You can't.
Yeah. I'm, let's put it this way. I'm on ice skates. I'm nervous. Like I'm not that Kansas State game scares the ever loving crap out of me.
Yeah. Avery Johnson, baby. That's a wild card and a half. So
okay.
Great hair. Great name.
Next game, number 18, Louisville, 6-1. We can do this one quick. We got to do all of them quick. We had a really long show already.
Yes.
Let's just do these next five really quick. Number 18, Louisville, 6-1, 3-1 in the ACC, laying 4 points against Duke. Number 20 in the country, 5-2, 2-1. Riley Leonard is day to day. I don't know what his health status is going to be. And a secondary discussion, I guess. I mean, I said we're going to be quick, but maybe we won't be. Should Riley Leonard return next year? Look at this. Speak of the devil.
Is he throwing right-handed in that picture?
I don't know. I mean, you know how like it's like a mirror, maybe? I don't know.
He looks like a righty in that picture.
He
That's a reversed image.
Look at me. This guy's taking me to the title this year. We got Kyle
Who is
Pitts.
that?
Oh gosh.
We got some investment pieces here. We got some Chris Olave. Just got
as a Bijan Robinson fantasy owner, you almost set me off there, Ari. So
oh, that would have been cool. That card would be way more expensive if it were Bijan.
Probably. No, I think I've been too hard on Louisville this year, Ari. I felt like they were just going to be kind of boosted by having a really soft schedule, but I don't think I've forgiven them for the Georgia Tech debacle in week 1, or just like, y'all should kill these guys, and they just keep winning ball games and beat. I think Louisville, I think this will be a low scoring game, but I think Louisville wins this ball game and covers.
Yeah, you and I watched that game at.
We did. We watched it at Papacitos.
Papacitos, that's right.
I mean, Chewy's.
Yeah, whatever.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Ari's not a fan of Papacitos for anybody.
No, I'm not. It's not that I'm not a fan of
fan.
Papacitos. I don't understand the hype of it. It's fine.
It's great.
It tastes
One
like
day,
every other Tex-Mex restaurant on the face of the earth.
when Bruce comes on this podcast next time, you and him got to talk about it because that's like his favorite thing. So
it's his favorite thing. I don't understand that the food
get
cannot
it.
be differentiated from any other standard random Tex-Mex place.
okay,
This
so
is
just
best
can't.
food take.
so this game, Riley Leonard day to
It's
day.
Chili's, by the way. It's Chili's.
Day to day. We'll see if he plays. Obviously, things turned last week when Florida State when he went out, but he looked like he could possibly play. I can't read Mike Elko on whether or not a quarterback's going to play because it did not sound like from him that Riley Leonard was going to play against Florida State, and then he did. So I'm gonna think Riley probably plays. I'm picking Duke to cover the 4. Either way, though, at home, I do like Duke's overall team, and I'm gonna go with Duke to cover.
Okay, we didn't really do a good job of understanding what speed round was on that one, so let's try to do it on these.
We'll do our best.
Tennessee at Kentucky, laying 3.5, over under 51.5. What do you think?
A lot of home dogs this week.
A lot.
You're always on home dogs.
Well, I'm not.
Oh, wait,
I'm not, and it makes me nervous because I like a lot of the road teams this week. Tennessee, they got some weird voodoo in the beer barrel game over Kentucky. I guess I'm going to lean into that. I think both these teams are pretty good, but Tennessee's really good on the lines. I think they can hold up against Kentucky's run game, limit Ray Davis, and get enough from Joe Milton to get the win in the cover here.
I'm going to say the same thing. I think Tennessee bounces back from the Alabama finish, and like you said, good things seem to happen for them. against
Yes.
against Kentucky. 3.5 points. I will take Tennessee.
Only 7 teams better at stopping the run than Tennessee.
Tennessee is just weird to me because I don't know what they are.
They don't know what they are.
I don't know what they are. I think I agree with both of you guys. I have no pulse whatsoever of like if Tennessee were just to line up and play Georgia tomorrow, like I don't know what I would think. Probably the same thing I thought last year. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Bad example.
Bad example. Bad
Oregon
matchup.
State, another what seems to be kind of a big game. I don't know, in the Pac-12. Oregon State 6-1, laying 3.5 on the road at U of A, Arizona, and all of a sudden Noah Fafita, the backup quarterback that is in for Jaden DeLora, very early in his career, has been awesome. Like, is Arizona, hey, over 500 heading into November? That's a pretty big revelation for my hometown Wildcats.
Another game here, Ari, where I'm going to go with the road favorites. Defense, offensive line control the game here. Oregon State gets the win and the cover here.
I'm going to say the same. Oregon State's defense remains legit. I think Fafita kind of runs into some trouble there. That said, Arizona is a completely different team the last number of weeks. Kicked Washington State's butt, played Washington close, nearly beat USC. It's a credit to them that the line is what it is, but I think I'm still going to go Oregon State.
I went to Arizona, as you guys know, and
I couldn't tell by your hat.
They have well, how could you? It's a Diamondbacks hat in a different city. Come on, man.
In Dallas. You're wearing a Diamondbacks hat in Dallas.
During a Rangers series where they have a very underrated stadium. It gets really loud when people are into it, and their student section goes from like the 10 to the 10 in the lower deck on the entire east side of the stadium.
Yep.
And like every single year, they seem to have one game like this where they can, they'll get up for this because like Oregon State's ranked number 11. And if Arizona is kind of just finding out who they are, I mean, I am very tempted here to take the homer pick. Not that I really care if they win or lose, but it seems like an interesting spot where I might take Arizona. So, okay.
I think it's a bad matchup, but we'll see. Yeah.
Air Force, Dave's national champion pick.
Ari hates the G5 so much.
No, I hate your
Chris,
passion.
please.
I hate that you constantly make me feel like I don't like it when I watch all these games. I was
wait.
last night. Like it's like,
yeah, but why are we watching that game?
I was into it.
Oh, right.
That's the
I was so just intrigued about whether or not Sam Houston State would finally win a game.
They're allergic to winning.
Let me tell you one thing, buddy. I was way more into that freaking game than you were. I was bitterly disappointed with the way it had ended.
Oh man! All right, if you put money on an 0-6 team, that's you. That's on you.
They were favored, bud.
I know they were, and again, let me repeat: if you put money on an 0-6 team to cover, have you seen why they're 0-6?
What about an 0-16 team or an 0-6 team to cover? Not cover, but took them live 4-1 in the fourth quarter, down 7 with 10 minutes left. Is that respectable?
That's more respectable.
No, because again,
buddy, they tied the game like 3 minutes after I placed the bet.
I know,
and they
but
had the ball with 3 minutes left. I'm happy with the 4-1 bail on that.
Rubenstein is famous for saying winning is a skill. I also think that losing is a skill, and Sam Houston State is absolute.
I can't believe they lost, but I can't believe they lost that game. They had the ball.
I can
with 2 minutes left, and they were moving the ball with ease the entire game. Thought they were certainly going to just drive down the field and kick a field goal. Like, I love the G5. Also, Daniel Garrett's lock of the week is Toledo. So I'm going to take it, Daniel, and I'm going to rail on you if it loses. I'm going big. Going big.
As for this game, I think Colorado State's a little overvalued. They've been competitive, impressive last week against UNLV. But I say Air Force is a wagon, and I think they're undervalued because people somehow don't forget that like the service academy games are always weird because they're just like playing a scrimmage against each other basically. So I'm gonna take Air Force against a team that does not run the option and has questionable structural integrity on the front of its defensive line. So give me the Falcons big here. Get back to their beatdown ways.
You want to talk about the funniest possible outcomes of things? Like, how about a triple option team in the playoff? Would that be funny?
Here's the thing. Do you think that team would have more shot
Oh God.
than a regular team that runs an offense. We've
I
seen.
don't. No.
Did you not
They have
cover
a
the
month to prepare for those games.
Do you remember when Navy almost beat Ohio State in Ohio
I
Stadium?
do.
You probably covered that game.
I remember when Ohio State struggled with Navy in their season opener the year they won the national title.
Yeah, when they had months to prepare for that game. We saw Air Force almost beat Michigan one time. I think that.
Do I think this
You're not going to.
Do I think that this Air Force team has a better chance of beating Georgia? No, I don't.
Not Georgia. They're not.
That's who they're playing in the playoff.
Not in the.
Who do you think they're playing?
They're playing the 5
bull crap expanded playoff. Okay, whatever. Yeah, maybe.
Oh, I meant in a theoretical 12-team. Yes, in a 14 playoff. Air Force is not making the playoff. This Air Force team is not making a 14 playoff. No. It's not happening.
I want it to
for the record
because I
literally can't.
Yeah, I was talking about the theoretical next year 12 team. But the thing about Air Force, by the way, Army joining the American Conference this year next year. Army and Navy get all the attention. Nobody pays attention to Air Force, which has been a very, very good program for 15 plus years under Troy Calhoun. Whatever the changes that service academies have to go under, Air Force gets through it. Their offense is a little bit different. They kind of run their program a little bit different than the other service academies and get some fifth-year players on their team. But all that success, they've won 10 plus games 3 of the last 4 years. They've only made the Mountain West Championship game once, and they've never won the conference. So, like, as I watch this Air Force team, I'm wondering where the stumble is going to come because it usually happens. I don't think Air Force is going to go 12-0 in the regular season. That said, I think Colorado State is a favorable matchup. I'm picking Air Force in this game, but I still have some questions about the Falcons.
No service academy undefeated or untied since 1949.
All right, last one, guys. I just got to do it for Dave. I would have left it off, but get through the podcast. I'll talk about Dion. So, number 23, UCLA, 5-2, 2-2 in the Pac-12, laying 17 points. Holy shit! Sorry, that's a lot of points against Colorado, 4-3 at a 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Is somebody not playing or something?
No, Ari.
What?
Colorado's not good on the lines, and UCLA is quite good.
No, I don't know. 17 points for a team that can chuck it a little bit. I don't know.
Ari, UCLA.
If I was making the line for the game, it wouldn't be 17.
Not to play the transitive property game, but Colorado just lost to a team that UCLA beat 42-7. I'm just saying.
And people don't understand how good UCLA's defense is.
Yes.
Danton Lynn has taken over that group. They are very, very good on that side of the ball. I would expect them to have a very good game plan set. Ethan Garber started at quarterback last week, had a huge game because Dante Moore's banged up. No word on who's going to start, but I don't think I'd move away from Garber's after what he did. So, I can understand why the line is what it is. By the way, this game, ABC, while Washington top 5 is over on FS1. I think it just goes to show you still the impact Dion is having on the television ratings for this game. And people are going to be reinterested in Colorado because it's been 2 weeks plus since we saw the Stanford game. Yeah. I'm going to take UCLA though. I think this is a really solid team, and Colorado is continuing to kind of fall apart as the year goes on.
I will also take UCLA here, and my lock of the week, under 63.5. Colorado is not going to be able to score in this game. If you want to take the Colorado team under, go ahead. But they can't run the ball, and if you're one-dimensional against Danton Lynn and this defense, that's going to be a problem. That is going to be a problem, and I'm not sure that UCLA is just going to roll through Colorado, even as many defensive issues as they have. So I think that number is inflated because of Colorado's last outing, which was 100-something points. So my lock of the week, under 63.5 here.
My pick, I guess, is just Colorado plus 17 based on my initial reaction to it, but I feel like that's an L now, so I'm going to hammer UCLA, and I'm going to blame you too if it doesn't work. Okay, superlative picks. Superlatives. Picks. Okay, so we did your lock of the week, Dave. My lock of the week is Wyoming plus 5 against Boise State. Did anybody watch football this year? Has anybody watched it?
Chris, all right, we were talking about this a little bit before the show. This is somehow I'm conditioned to think that we're being trapped by Vegas, but we do watch a lot of college football, and as much as we get wrong, we do know something, Ari. And I could not believe this might be almost be a wrong team favored situation. I checked the money on this. Boise State was getting 88% of the money because when you told me this was your lock, I loved the pick, but I was like, that seems too obvious. But then like the public is all over Boise, and I think it's just as simple as people hear Boise and like, oh, they're good, and hear Wyoming and are like, who? And haven't watched.
But I also think too, people are very reactionary, and the fact that Wyoming lost last time they played to an Air Force team that is very good kind of just takes the luster a little bit off of who they were. I think that
Wyoming's coming off a bye. Wow.
I think Wyoming is maybe the play to just hit money line here. I'm taking the points, but I think that Wyoming might win the game.
Wyoming's a difficult team to figure out because they've only, they get blown up by Air Force. They only beat App State because they blocked a field goal and returned it for a touchdown. Offensively, they've been kind of a mess. Boise, I don't know, man. Like they've lost almost every game by one score coming out of the final place. They lost on a Hail Mary last time we saw them, I think, against Colorado State. They have not figured things out. They've got a great running back, Ashton Genty, by the way, if anybody's paid attention to him. But the quarterback situation's a mess. Defense has been okay. I would not touch this game. I know it's like your lock. I don't trust either of these teams. I could see any possible result.
Do you know that Dan Rubenstein says that winning is a skill? And Wyoming won a game where their quarterback was 5 for 15 for 31 yards and an interception. So
they're typically a 500 team. They're not exactly winning all.
Why are you yelling
at
me right now?
This year, Chris. These teams are different.
Chris, what is your lock of the week?
Ohio. The Bobcats are -7 against Miami of Ohio. The Battle of the Bricks, huge game in the MAC East. However, Miami quarterback Brett Gabbert out for the year. Had a leg injury last week against Toledo. And I think that quarterback change, plus I think this game is at Ohio. I think I really like Ohio. I think it's a really good team. They blew it again a couple weeks ago against NIU because quarterback threw 3 interceptions at the end of the game. But I think Ohio's really good. Quarterback change at Miami. Going with the Bobcats. Big.
I don't know about that, Chris.
Sicko's game of the week. Dave, who's yours?
Well, unfortunately, Iowa is off this week, so we can't win on the
pick an Iowa game. They will get as many yards as they usually get, though.
I guess I could watch an Iowa practice if I really wanted to, but no. UMass and Army. UMass, inexplicably beat what is a pretty good New Mexico State team. Was that week 0, Chris? I believe it was week 0.
Yeah.
And people were kind of like, oh, UMass, Don Brown, Tyson Palmer.
UMass fans are real mad at me. I had them at 133. They're like, we're going to have a good year. I was like, all right, you proved it in week 1.
Since that game, they have not
Can you move them up to 11 after that?
Maybe. Since that game, they have not. They lost by 24 to an Arkansas State team that lost 73-0 to Oklahoma. And they're playing a bad Army team that has not scored since October 7th. That was 19 days ago. That's as sickos as it gets. Enjoy this one, folks. Enjoy this one. Watch from outside the window with a very gross look on your face.
My sickos game of the week is Minnesota, Michigan State. I have no idea why a human being would want to watch this game. Sorry, Chris. I know you went to Michigan State, unless you enjoy trivia on the scoreboard. But other than that, I don't know, what you're watching here. So, and I'm joking about it. Okay, that was absolutely and utterly ridiculous, Chris. Okay, it's a podcast. What are we doing, Michigan State?
I'm just amazed that if you are in charge, Hitler aside. If you are in
Hitler aside, yeah,
that's a good way to start a sentence.
But if you're in charge of stadium ops, that your best idea for stadium entertainment is just look up a random trivia game on YouTube and just watch it on the big screen for 30. That clearly you didn't want, or maybe you did and you just didn't think about how.
I don't think they did that.
They really need a picture of the guy. Did we?
They just pulled it. They've been doing it all year. They just pull, I believe, from this specific channel. I think is what they told me.
I thought the YouTube channel guy's response was fair in that it was an appropriate trivia question in a very inappropriate setting. I would say if you have a random YouTube channel, that's fine, but you didn't make that channel with the intention of it being broadcast on a stadium PA system.
Correct.
It's laziness and sloppiness in terms of stadium presentation. It's just what are we
didn't talk about it on the podcast. I thought it was important to at least make that known. There was somebody, I can't remember who tweeted it, but somebody tweeted last week, what was the biggest takeaway, or what did we learn from last week's college football weekend? And somebody wrote, where Hitler was born. If you didn't know, Hitler was born in Austria. If you learned that at the Michigan State game last week by looking at the scoreboard, Good for you.
That was
okay.
For the record, I did know that. I did.
I bet honestly a lot of people get that wrong. That was Bunky Perkins who tweeted that. My favorite comment of the week was it was a Reddit post. It was, man, Ohio State fans must be feeling great about this Michigan drama. And one Ohio State fan says, yeah, we love it. A Penn State fan says, yeah, I've completely gotten over losing to Ohio State. And a Michigan State fan chimes in and says, I've completely forgotten where Hitler was born.
Okay.
Right,
next,
and by the way,
Sicko's game of the week is the perfect pick after that. Don't get sicker than that.
It is New Mexico at Nevada. Nevada just ended a 16-game losing streak with a win at San Diego State by the score of 6-0. Ugly game last week. They're playing a New Mexico team that has only beaten Tennessee Tech, UMass, and Hawaii. Now, this New Mexico team can move the ball. They got the offense coordinator and quarterback from UAB, but this is going to be an ugly game on CBS Sports Network.
What's the last one? The last one is upset a week. Mine was.
This should be trap game week. As many
my trap game of the week was. I submitted it too late, so Cam couldn't make me a graphic, and it's I forgot what it was. So let me.
Well, I'll just tell you.
My trap game of the week is USC at Cal. That was right.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Ari.
Cal is
weird vibes coming out of USC. Lincoln's got pneumonia.
Lincoln Riley's missed a couple days of practice.
I don't really know if it matters because USC's on pace to lose 4 or 5 games anyway. But like everybody thought, like Cal was the reprieve in the brutal stretch to end their schedule. Cal has been fairly functional offensively this year too.
Yes,
and their defense stinks. Their coach is like gone with a sickness. Like I believe it's in Cal, right? It's in Berkeley, right? The game.
I don't know. I don't know. You're the one who picked it.
I'm the one who.
There's real. This is like our pets' heads are falling off kind of loss here.
And you got
Berkeley.
You got Emmanuel Acho saying Caleb should sit out the rest of the season.
Yeah. There's just a lot of bad vibes and bad noise coming out of USC right now. It's not great. Ari, I really do think truly this weekend, because there's so many road favorites, I think we're going to be on here Saturday night talking about a fairly shocking loss and maybe a couple of them. My trap game is Tulane at Rice. Don't be these people, Tulane. You got the world in front of you. You might be able to chase down Air Force. You're a week away from seeing what you got to do to get to the New Year's Six again. You could pass up Air Force. It's going to be a tight race, I think, Chris. Would you say it's probably fair? It'll be tight.
It will be. I don't think an undefeated Air Force gets left out. But I think Tulane's going to get the spot. I think it's a really good Tulane team. They've had a couple of clunkers. They started off slow against UAB. They played with their food late against North Texas. I think it's a good trap game pick going to Rice, which is playing decently. Rice is like okay.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about like teams that play grab ass, or like this whole instance of, or this whole like wave now of people saying playing with their food, and it's like literally we make fun of you for doing every week. Like you play with your food every single week.
I don't know that Tulane is good enough to refer to anybody as food. They're a good team, but like I pretty much reserve that phrase for like unless you're playing with an FCS team or you're like a top 8 team playing against a team in the bottom half of your conference that like you don't have to beat them 60-0, but like the outcome should not be in doubt after like the first quarter.
Yeah, my trap game, we already said it, Wisconsin, Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Tulane's playing Rice, so they literally could be playing with their food this weekend.
That's true.
All right, guys. I think that's the. Oh, wait, you have one more thing.
Shout out to the Rice gummy worm guy. Speaking of playing with your food, Rice has a guy on the sideline.
Yeah.
Gummy worms to the players like he's a Salt Bay, essentially. And I think Rice said they're going to give out. Trolley has jumped in. They're going to give out gummy worms to like the first 2,000 students or something like that. So shout out to the Rice gummy worm guy who's literally playing with
youth football. They used to give you sliced oranges at halftime to like try to like rejuvenate. Remember, like during youth football, that was like they sliced the oranges and everybody would eat the oranges to like
potassium.
I don't know if is that like a youth football thing or is that just an Arizona thing? I don't know if that happened.
It's a youth sports thing.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't know if it was like hydration attempts too, but being in the heat. Oh man, that was a good show. I thought 1 hour and 20 minutes. Thank you guys so much for listening to the latest edition of Until Saturday. We will be live again on Saturday night, Dave and I, when the dust settles on what I think might be Grab Ass Saturday We'll see.
Big upset. There's going to be a big upset coming this weekend. I'm telling you. Too many people not away from home playing against competent teams. Somebody's going down. I don't know who, but
Someone's going down like a sweet muffin this weekend. You heard it from him. Be sure to follow the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You'll be notified when new episodes go up. We always appreciate 5-star reviews and ratings, comments, shares, anything that you can do to support the podcast, interact with the podcast. Everything helps it grow, means a lot to us. And the next time we talk to you again, like I said, will be Saturday night. For Chris, Dave, I'm Ari. Thank you for listening.
Bring back the turnover chain.